Hi, my name's Charles XII. I am a technical pixel Starships player, if indeed there is such a thing, and I reckon there aren't really many good guides on higher level gameplay on YouTube, so I figured I'd fill that niche. And to start off with, we're going to be discussing one of the most important parts of late game AI, which is logic gates. How they work, how to write them, and a little bit of prerequisites for them. So we're going to start off with how AI is read. If you already know that, if you're comfortable with that, there'll be a timestamp flashing across the screen right about now. You can skip to that. But for those who need a refresher, or for those who just don't know to begin with, here's how AI is read. First of all, you've got conditions and you've got actions. These are always paired together. And if a condition is true, and the action is possible, then the action will be executed. Now, the game reads at 40 game ticks a second, and every tick, the game will look at your AI, it'll read it top to bottom, and the first condition that is true, with a possible action it will execute, and then it will go right back to the top and start again on the next tick. So it will only ever execute one action per second from any type of AI, and that's going to be targeting, that's going to be ammo, that's going to be power, and that's going to be ability usage. All of these are read in parallel. So next up then, we're going to get into what a skip is, and this is going to be extremely important for us, because this is super important for logic gates. In fact, about 70 to 80% of the conditions in this video, not the conditions, the actions, sorry, are going to be skips. And so a skip is an action you unlock with quantum computing, which is colloquially known as Python 4. And that's a research you unlock at, I want to say it's level 11, I'm not quite sure, I don't know, it's been a while. So what this is if its condition is true, it'll go ahead and it'll skip the next line of the same type. And what's unique about this is that you can in fact skip other skips. This is what we're going to be building a lot of our basic logic gates off of. Now, this is, as I say, extremely useful for logic gates. You're going to see that in full effect today. I'm going to start out with the most common game, and this is going to be the standard AND gate. What this is if we have two conditions A and B, both of them have to be true for the action to be executed. Now, I'm going to give you a moment to think about how you might want to do this. Feel free to pause if you need to. For those of you who just want to know the answer, or for those of you who want to check it now, I'm going to go ahead and show you the compile. So, we have your ship has full shields, skip next target action, non-skip next target action, and your ship HP undamaged, target your laser. And this reads as your ship has full shields and your ship HP is undamaged, then target your laser. Now, we're going to use lines 1 and 3 as our standard conditions A and B for the rest of this video, just so you know what I'm referring to. But again, if you want to take a moment to consider how this works, maybe you didn't figure it out earlier, at the moment to pause, we've got another opportunity now, for those of you who just want to know. What we're going to look at first is line 3. Now, we can see that line 3 is the only line here that carries an action. And so for this action to be executed, clearly we need line 3 to be read, right? But if we look at line 2 just above it, we can see that this will always skip line 3 if we allow it to, because that's always true, right? There's no condition for it to be true. So clearly, going back to the last slide, we can see that we need to skip line 2 in order for line 3 to be readable, and this is where line 1 comes in. If line 1 is true, we'll skip line 2 and go straight to line 3. So for line 3 to be read and executed, both its condition and line 1's condition have to be true. Otherwise you'll just go right past it. And this is why I refer to line 3 as the crux here. Moving on, we can extend these in a number of ways. The first thing you might think of is, well, probably this is going to be pretty similar, but I might want to have a few more conditions, right? How do we do this? Well, let's start with just a third condition. This can look like this. Now, this is pretty similar to the old one, right? And we'll get into why that is. This is very scalable as well. You could add as many conditions as you like, right up to the AI line limit at 55 if you have the computer room and a maxed out command room. Now, why is this the way that it is? Well, if we look at lines 3 to 5 here, we can see that they're actually the exact same as lines 1 to 3 from our standard AND gate. So, what we can do then is we know line 3 needs to be read, but line 2 will skip this, right? But we can just skip this again with line 1, and so we've got 3 conditions. And what's interesting about this is we can actually look as the entire AND gate. That's just one condition if you think about it. If we look at this AND gate here, the standard one from earlier, as one condition, then we've got that and line 1. And so you can take an AND gate of any length and put it as the start or the end of your logic gate if you're making a custom one. That's going to be very interesting later, but we won't go into this for this video. Next, we're going to talk about condition inversions. And these are another extremely useful thing for logic gates, although they are a bit more complicated. What it is if you have an original condition, its inversion is its opposite. So for example, the inversion of your ship has full shields is your ship's shields are under 100%. And we're going to note this as condition A for the original. Of course, this can be condition B, C, D, and so on. And minus A for the inverse. Again, that can be minus A, minus B, minus C. It goes on from there. One of the first uses we have of this is going to be... Oh, sorry. I should go into the conditions to fulfill it first. Sorry, I forgot my own slide. As to fulfill these conditions. If A and minus A are in the same AND gate, this AND gate will never be true. Obviously, if we look at what happens if you put your ship's shields under 100% and your ship has full shields in an AND gate, well, this will never be true, will it? Because if your ship's shields are full, then they're not under 100% and vice versa. But at the same time, if we have A target your laser and minus A target your laser right after that, then this will always be true, because there's no case in which both of these are false. This is the same as if you know set theory from maths. Is going to be the same as the complement to a set. So, the first use we have of this is going to be shortening AND gates. There you go. The slide's a bit janky, sorry about that. And so, what this is if we look at AND gates, they can get pretty long. Especially like you're really clamoring for lines, you don't want to use too many. And we can use condition inversions to remove one line from it. And it will still work the exact same. So if we look at our right compile here, 1 to 5, well, we know how this works, we just went over that. We need line 3 to be readable. If we look at our left compile here, I've used the inverse of the line 1 on the right compile. And so what this does is it says, okay, if your ship has evasion, we're going to skip right to line 3 and we're going to skip the whole gate. We don't want that if we want the gate to be true. And so the only way for this not to be true is if your ship has no evasion. This is the inversion we're using. If you're astute among you, you can actually see that this line 1 here, your ship has evasion, skip next target action, is actually the exact same thing as your ship has no evasion, skip next, and then none action. So we can see these are both NOT gates, but as I say, some of the time you're just not going to have the inversion available, so it's worth it to know both of these. Now, moving on to our last slide for the video, we're going to be talking about writing other logic gates, and as an example for this, we're going to use XOR. An XOR is where if either A or B are true, but not both nor neither, then you will perform the action. Again, you can take as much time as you like, feel free to pause, and in a moment I'll tell you how we can write this. Right. So, now that you're back, Here's the compile I'd use for this. What we're doing is we've got condition A, skip next, condition B, action, and then vice versa. Now, you might have expected us to use inversions. And in fact, we actually are here. What we're doing is we're using a NOT gate on lines 1 and 3, but because an inversion is already a NOT gate, we've gone ahead and inverted the inversion back to the original. So what this is we're using constituent gates. This is essentially A and not B, or B and not A. And this gives us nearly endless possibilities. Indeed, you should be able to write pretty much any logic gate you want out of the 8 basic ones you saw at the start. And from that you can do a whole host of things. But there are a few things you can't do. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but there's definitely been examples where I've been assigned something and I've had to say no, this is impossible, and then prove why. Yeah, that's about all for today. Thank you for watching, lads.